Salutations, ladies and gentlemen, and good evening. Welcome to another edition of Encrypted Connections. I am your host, Kyle, and tonight, happy Friday, right? Happy Friday, guys. Tonight, I have a wonderful guest, man. Somebody that I have a lot of respect for. He's done a ton of stuff to help me out in my research. Has done nothing but extend his hand, honestly, and somebody with some of the greatest, visual evidence, I think, that is on the planet. Everybody, Mark Zaskey. How you doing tonight, buddy?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, brother. How you? Good, good.
It's
I'm.
Friday.
Huh? What?
Friday.
Dude, I never know what day it is, man. Every day I come on here, I'm like, happy. Wait, what day is it? What day is it? I never know. Everything just kind of meshes together. It's like
once you enter the white rabbit hole. Yes. I love the intro, man. It's great.
Thank you. Yeah. I got a thing. The white rabbit thing is, I don't know. It was a big thing to me. Like, kind of represents a whole lot of stuff. Number one, I love that Jefferson Airplane song. I think it's an awesome song.
Sure.
Great song. But that, then the Alice in Wonderland thing. You follow the white rabbit down the hole, man. How far are you willing to go in to find what you need to find or what you want to find? And I would say you've gone pretty friggin' deep.
Yeah, my wife and I just came up for air like a month ago after like 8 years. So.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, man. I've been watching your stuff for quite a while. I mean, I don't remember when I first watched Hidden Reality. I found it on Amazon. It was probably somewhere towards the beginning of COVID, maybe. When did you make that?
20. I think we put it out early 2018.
Okay, so then yeah, it was probably around.
It was on Prime back then. Yeah.
That's probably when I watched it then, because that's where I found it. Was on Prime. Being a Bigfoot junkie, I'm trying to find as many documentaries as I can, and I'm like, oh, I've never seen this one before. What's this? And then I remember seeing that image when you guys were kind of across the pond or something, and there was the big giant, whatever you called them. I don't remember what you called them, the Hulk, or I don't know what the hell you called them, but
gigantic thing, man.
Yeah, there was just this huge face, and I'm like, holy God, that thing is massive.
With the
and it was clear.
Shoulders.
Yeah, dude. And it was so clear. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what in the hell?
Yeah.
And so from then I was like, I got to find more about like these guys. I got to find out more. And, thank God I found the YouTube stuff after that. And here we are, man. Here we are. Amazing to me. This is cool stuff though, right? So as a fan, I watched those videos. I watched the documentary, never ever thinking I'm going to talk to the guy who made it.
Sure.
Right. And then, and not only that, but he says, yeah, send me a map. Send me a map of 100 square miles, and I'll tell you where I think you should go to look. And I did that. And you sent me back 2 places. And since then, I have got one footprint, my very first one that I've ever got on my own, 14 3/4 inches long by 6.5 inches wide.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's abnormally wide.
It's big, dude.
Yeah, that's abnormally wide.
It's big, but I'm going to pull it up a little later because I want you to look at it.
I mean, that's in the right realm for our stuff, but for a human, that's abnormally wide.
Oh, yeah, that's a size 21 shoe, dude. Lengthwise. Widthwise, I have no idea what the hell that would be. That's like, I don't know. Yeah. That's weird, crazy wide. But yeah, I was telling people about it, and I'm like, I think people tend to think that when you say, okay, 14 3/4 inches, oh, it's like a size 15. No. That's not how that works. That's not how that works. I wear a size 13 shoe. My foot is 12 inches long. A size 14 shoe is 12 1/4 inches long. A size 15 shoe is 12 1/2 inches long. And so when you continue to go in 1/4 inches, you get to size 20 pretty quickly. And I don't think people really understood how big it was until I kind of went over this with some people. Some people do, but not everybody. A
Well,
size
not to
20?
mention, I mean, if you let's just take that foot right now.
Yeah.
Picture a pair of three-striped Keds.
Yeah.
You know how
Yeah.
wide those Keds would be on a 6.5-inch foot, 14.5 inches long. Imagine the size. Have you ever even come close to seeing a human with a foot that size?
No, never.
No.
Never.
No.
I put my foot next to it, like I kept it in the air as best I could, my balance, just to try to get an idea. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, what in God's name is this? I mean, I
That's pretty
knew
cool.
it was,
That's
dude. I was live when I found that, live streaming.
How far away from the area that I circled did you find the track?
It was in the area.
Oh, it was in the circle?
It was
On the
dead.
map?
It was dead in that area that you pointed out to me.
No
Yeah,
kidding. Did you see anything else while you were in there?
of
Or
course I did.
did you hear anything? Oh, what else did you get?
So, okay, so listen, the same day, and I don't know what it was for sure. The same day, before I found the footprint, I was walking. So it's kind of a crazy setup. There's a state park there, right? There's a lot of very heavily wooded area, and then there's some areas like where I came out at, and there's this bigger field. It's an open field, and around the outside of this field is like a path, like a matted down path from people walking it, or I don't know, like if it's like people go there and walk, these trails and stuff there. So I'm assuming that's what it's from. The field though has really high grass, maybe 4 to 6 feet tall, the whole field, and only the outside has this path around it. And it's right against the edge of the trees where the forest surrounds it. So I was walking around and I decided to walk in to the field, and I found a little game trail. So I followed the game trail through the grass, and then there was this whole set of bushes, right? Real thick, dense brush. And it was probably, I don't know, 60 feet long by 50 or 60 feet back. And I'm walking by it and I was talking to the camera, and all of a sudden, in that bush, something moved. And I'm not just like a light movement, it was a heavy movement. And it freaked me out, dude. I mean, I jumped. This is all live streamed. I jumped. I think I even dropped a couple F-bombs and was like, what the is that? And then I was trying to keep my composure, man. And I was having a really hard time because this was like maybe 15 feet from me. And whatever was in there was probably, I would say 4 feet off the ground was where I was hearing the noise. But if this makes any sense, you could almost hear that, like, it was how big it was, like just from the way it was moving. Does that make sense? Like,
Sure. There's a very big difference between something moving that's small and something that's really got a lot of mass moving around in the same bush. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I've
this
heard it
was
many times, and the difference between the two.
And this was big. This wasn't a bird. This wasn't a squirrel. This probably, to me, it wasn't even a deer, Mark. And not only that, but I got that crazy feeling, like every hair on my body just went ping and stood right up. And one of the bushes was shaking back and forth, like vibrating almost. And then there was a bunch of noise, it got louder, and whatever this was went back into the bushes. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, man, do I go in there? What do I do? Like, because I don't know what this is. I'm not sure. I have an idea, maybe, but I'm not sure. And I just couldn't go in, dude. I was too scared. I backed up. I tried to film a little more. The noise subsided. And I freaked, man. I left, and I kicked myself in the ass for it, because I was like, who knows? Maybe it was nothing, but if it was something, I just left, man. I couldn't get my composure. It was so close. It was so close.
Do you remember if you looked at the bush while it was shaking?
Yeah.
Okay. How tall was the bush?
Oh God, I don't know. Probably over 10 feet tall.
So it was a very large, what was it, like a giant weed, probably?
Yeah, it was a giant weed. You know,
Yeah, like
sticks on it.
overgrown weed.
Sticks on it that were about that wide. Branches stick everywhere, and
Yeah,
you know, yeah.
Some little ficus weed or something. But
Yeah.
was it a thickly leaved tree?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and was it one that was round?
Yep.
Right. So you couldn't see anything when you looked at it. It was just shaking,
Just shaking.
and you couldn't see through it.
Nope. Everything. That's the thing, right? This whole area where it was, all the bushes, they just kept going. Like it was like, you know, maybe 60 feet this way, or not 60 feet, 60 yards like this way, and then like 60 yards back. And when it got to the back, then it was into the wood line.
Okay.
So it extended out from the wood line into this field where this tall grass was, thick, tall grass, where just one game trail that was probably, I don't know, 2 to 3 feet wide, maybe a little wide, I don't know. But, and then, you know, I came upon this bush, and it was like these bushes, it was just right there. And I just was walking by, like I wasn't even going to do anything. Like I wasn't going to stop.
Did you happen to notice if the sun, like where the sun was at when all this was happening?
No, because there was no sun. It was, so here's the craziest part about this footprint. Let me tell you about the footprint. This is the craziest part, and about this whole thing. That footprint is in sand. Okay. On that path around the outside of this field, one singular patch of sand, 10 feet by 5 feet, 10 feet wide by 5 feet, or 10 feet long by 5 feet wide. Where it was in the transition from the grass, that path, and then going up into the wood line. It was right on the bottom of that transition between where it starts to slope up and where that little path is. But the grass, where that was if I had to guess, I would say maybe 10 feet back, the grass line. And that sand, like I said, was like 10. Huh?
It was in between it.
Yeah, so it looked like it must have stepped out of that grass, and then that left foot, or was it left foot or right foot? Right foot landed in this sand, and then it went up into the woods, is what it looks like. But here's the crazy part about this. For 2 days prior to this, we got heavy torrential rain.
Nice.
It only, the night before is when the sun came out, probably around 2:30 or 3 in the afternoon, but it starts getting dark here now around 5. Back then, it was right before I think we changed the clocks. So it's getting dark around 5. So it had to have dried out, that sand, enough, right? Because it wasn't completely dry, but it wasn't muddy, and it wasn't clay consistency. Just had a tiny bit of moisture to it. But it had to have dried out enough between then and when the next day when I was there. I don't know how soon. I have no idea how soon, but that print had to have been fairly fresh.
Sure. I think that's the one we went over where I was telling you if the raindrops weren't in the track.
They weren't.
The track was after the rain, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And well, the other thing too is it does corroborate what you heard, which is something moving out of there. And clearly also, if there were no other discernible tracks, and it's the large hominoid track, then there's evidence of their speed and strength, because there only being one track means the creature covered a considerable distance in the air, or to make it across the sand with one track into the next step, which was the edge of the grass. You said that was about 10 feet and then the tree line, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, you may have missed him by seconds seeing him.
Yeah.
If you had been on a different angle, you might have saw him run through there and get across.
Well, I went right in. I went in where it was going. I ran right in, into those woods. Yeah, I saw. So
you were right behind it.
I may have been. I don't know, but I was taking pictures of the footprint. Right, I was filming the footprint. I would put my camera down, my camera rig next to it, because I didn't have a tape measure, and I was like, well, if I put this down, I know that I can take a measurement from the camera, right? So I marked where it wasn't, and my camera rig with the what do you call the stupid thing? You know, the stand, it's a short stand the little three-legged stand or whatever.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah,
And
mini stand.
yeah, it's got the remote on it, so you can
Okay.
work the camera. That all the way up to the Rode mic on top was 15 inches, and this thing was literally just that much shorter. So I said 14 3/4 inches, maybe 14 and a half, but somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
And then same thing. I literally marked the camera.
So you're saying that this stuff happened inside the circle on the map?
Absolutely.
Man, that's crazy. That's awesome, because that's, corroborating, what we're finding down here in another state. Like we've got, you were in Connecticut, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Right. We've got Massachusetts now, because I got a buddy in Massachusetts now that we put him on a couple of spots, and he's working them, and he's like, you got to get up here. That's all I'm going to say.
Where in Mass?
So he's nailed them down. We nailed him down for the same guy in Maine, Scotty. He saw one.
Oh, yeah.
Where I circled on the map, man. And so, yeah, and there's other guys too. Canada, same situation. We're working the same kind of theories in Canada with researchers, but we haven't had anybody so far not confirm every single place that we circled, and they all have the same things in common. And essentially they're perfect niche microhabitats within a given area. It's like if you had no choice but to live in these areas, and you were wandering through the mountains for 6 months, man, trying to find an area for you and your kids, and you just didn't know what was going to happen. When you stumbled into these areas that they settle, you'd be like, this is where we're settling.
Yeah.
When you're there, you understand why they're there.
Yeah.
Because it's comfortable where they choose.
Yeah.
It's real comfortable. And all around, there's a lot of different bush, and there's a lot of shade, and there's thermoclines. If you're in the mountains, you're going to have temperature variations somewhere in that area, because when the summer comes, it's getting hotter and hotter every year, and they're seeking out those thermoclines. So what I do in my research is, for a couple of years, I was collating all of that stuff together to understand elevation and all that. But really what it comes down to is the topography is what we found. We're using the topography because they have to relate to it. They have no choice. And that essentially controls where everything is. The way the ground is developed, the way the ground is shaped, will determine where everything goes in that area from the ground up. And so once you understand the way topography, similar to fishing, if you understand how the bottom positions fish and structure positions fish, then you have a real good idea about Sasquatch already. You just have to take that on land and reapply it. It's like literally my fishing formulas, and I'm not even kidding you.
We talked about this a little bit off the air, but I'm gonna tell you, man, that's not the only stuff I found there.
What else? I mean, that's an encounter. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, I can tell you right now, if you're hearing stuff take off in the bushes and shaking bushes and all this, and then you go over there, and upon approach, there's a 14.5-inch track, 6.5 inches wide. Man, 2 + 2 is 4. You know what I mean? I know, in most people's minds, it doesn't equate to that.
No.
You've done it over and over and over again, and you understand once you've seen them, and this is what's happening in these situations. You see one run, you see one jump, you see one do this. Eventually, if you keep going, man, you're going to get educated.
Well, I continue to go there.
Somebody will step out and let you know.
Yeah.
No, they will. They'll step right out. They'll be like, "Yep, we're here. Get on out." You know what I mean? And they'll do it.
I'm going to tell you a few other things, because there was some other really weird stuff. Really weird that, like, I got goosebumps right now. I can't even, it's something that I can't explain to this day. So let me start first with this. We found multiple structures, and I'm not talking about some wind shit. I'm talking about structures that could not be made by wind. They could not be made by snow load. They couldn't be made by anything but something with hands. Putting these trees, I'm talking about full trees, man. Taking a full tree and shoving it up inside of another tree, and and taking that thing and pushing it so hard down in between a V in this tree that it literally compressed it. I mean, two of us tried to push this thing, kick it, knock it. We could not budge it. All the bark on in that V, all the bark on the sides where this thing was pushed down, all just ripped off from where something mashed this thing down. If a tree falls, okay. Oh, here's the other part of this. That's the crazy part. If a tree fell,
it was uphill.
what's that?
The tree somehow fell uphill.
Well, yeah, that too. But
okay. That's
not like a crazy uphill, but it was on an incline, a slight one. But here's the crazier part. The crazier part to this is this tree. It was probably not a full tree. It was like 3/4 of a tree, right? The root ball was attached. The top was broken off. Some of the top was broken off. It was not rotted. It was still solid, but it was older. Couldn't find anywhere where this fell from. I mean, we walked around forever trying to find it. Couldn't find anywhere where this fell from. Found no divots in the ground where this thing came out of the ground. No, I didn't even see any other trees in this area that looked like this tree. None. Nothing. But it was pushed down into the V in this tree mark. It had to have been like a machine did it.
Yeah.
I just, how do you explain that?
Big hands.
Dude.
That's awful.
How do you explain it? I mean, it was like, and these were not small trees.
No.
No shit, no. This thing was a hardwood tree, both of them. I don't know, man. That big around on the trunk. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
There's some of them are huge, man. You know, I mean, look at the stuff that they do in the Pacific Northwest, man. I think it's the Salish tribe. I think it is, or somewhere over there. They're jamming huge 60-foot trees into the ground,
upside down.
You know, yeah, man. Just the root balls are still attached to them. You know, so but we see a lot of that. You know, I mean, down here there are specific plants that are edible, and the palms are all edible, and the palms produce seeds. But some of the palms specifically that have the core that you can eat, heart of palm from.
Yep.
You can find harvests all over the forest where they're pulling the top off. They'll rip it out. The root ball is still attached to these things, and they'll rip the top off. And then they'll set 2 or 3 of them in the exact same style. Everything's perfectly stacked up against the tree, and let it soften, because it's easier to pull the palms off, the short fronds off, and rip it apart to get to the heart of palm. We've been walking around in this one area and seeing where they're literally doing this, and I found 3 or 4 different stacks, and you could see where the date palms had been ripped out of the ground in the area, and everything was prepped, and they were stuck in, jammed underneath these trees, stacked up 3 high, like, corn on the cob or something. It was a trip. But you can't do anything with these with hands, and you can see they haven't been cut. They're ripped apart. And it's like, man, these creatures are smart. They got stashes all through the forest. And this one appears to be older than the other one. So I know if I stage my camera somewhere in the area pointing at those, because those are going to be the first ones. They're softer than the other ones. Like setting up research as we go through, I in the area, and developing strategies on where to place the camera. There's a million different things that go through my head on how to trap the animal, or to begin looking at the area to develop it for interaction. You guys, it sounds like you have a viable group there, and it sounds like they've been there for a while with the structures and all that stuff. And some of this damage that you're talking about sounds like there's mature individuals in the area. I would, consider the interactive kind of campaign. You know what I mean? Because in the end, the way we do it, we back off and give them their area. We're just there to help out, man. Toss them a few apples, and they come out to get them, and that's how we catch them on film. We know they're in there. We've been all through the area. I've seen everything I need to see, the same stuff you've seen. I filmed it all, done all that, shown it all. But the reality is we want to go further than that. We want the creatures to choose to interact with us at some point on their own. And
Right.
they've done it 2 or 3 times. And we've caught it on film, only to have our memory cards not in service to get the footage off. I'm staring at the thumbnail the other day. 4K, 60 frames per second. Individual step right out, man, from 60, 70 yards away. And I filmed 3 clips. The first one I almost threw up on. The second one I nailed him. Held the camera steady. The third one, I was getting ready to run. So I was, freaking out again. But I can't get the footage off the memory card. And there's no format known to me after 10 years of working this kind of thing and figuring out formats that will read this video.
It's so crazy, right? And these are all the things that make people who are
look into it and say, man, this is bull.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know. I know. I was one of them, right? And so that's the most important thing you should know about me. I called bullshit on that 10 years ago. The battery thing. I was like, well, then, you're not prepared. A prepared researcher doesn't have those problems. And I got news for you. For 5, 6, 7 years of our 8-year study, we didn't. We had none of those problems. And the 6 Ps that I teach my wife about research, proper preparation prevents piss poor performance, always paid off. And that's why we're crypto reality. But 2 years ago, something happened and I don't know what. And suddenly, everywhere I go, my cameras are being killed. And I'm lucky to get footage out. It's only because I'm sneaky that I can. That's just the bottom line, man. I have to talk on the phone and give misinformation about where and when I'm going. I have to do online communication on where and when I'm going, and it has to be misinformation, or else every single place I go, my camera's dying.
Yeah, exactly.
Kerry Arnold was a victim of this as well. Everywhere he went with me, with the exception of Arkansas. In Arkansas, we had no camera interference, but we were on private property for the first time.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise.
It's a shame. It's really a shame. What are they hiding?
Well, I mean, what they're hiding is huge, literally.
Oh, yeah, that.
And it has to do with a lot of stuff, man. I mean, I try to put myself in the position of, for 8, 9, 10 years, I've been faced with an impossible problem. And we've come up with solutions every step of the way to get us to the next level, right? But at a certain point in our research, we started to see things, people and things that we weren't aware were a part of this in the forest. You know what I mean? Like, we've had people approach researchers that are on our team in Central Florida from out of nowhere in the woods, confronting them about crypto reality and being a part of it. We've had, and I'm talking about freaky kind of stuff where this guy's a deer hunter who was working with us and was like scouting his deer area, and obvious officials approached him in the middle of the forest, man. You know what I mean? And the guy didn't speak to me for over a year because of it. Freaked him out, man. And I found out from somebody else, and then I ended up having to talk to him, and it was true. And that's why to this day he doesn't have anything to do with us.
Well, I had a guy on about a week ago. Really nice guy. Somebody I through this I would call a friend. Just a great guy. His name Mark Green. I don't know if you've ever seen him. He's been on some shows before, but he's been doing this for a while down in Alabama. Now, he's not out to prove anything. He does this strictly as a hobby because he had some encounters that, made him go, man, I want to know more, right? But so he lives in Alabama. He has them on his property at his house, but he also at the hunting club that he's part of. Now, this is like 7,000 acres or something like that is this hunting club area to hunt on. Well, they had some guys show up there when they were there, and I forget the details of it, but they were out looking for what he calls boogers, which I love. I don't know why I love the name, but so they were.
It's a good name.
It's a great name, right? And boogers. We're out looking for boogers. I just love it. So he was out there looking for him, and with a couple of his buddies, and this black SUV was parked at the hunting club, and these guys got out and started asking him questions, and um, like I guess one of them, the game warden, who they knew personally because they're there all the time. It's the same guy. Was trying to get him to leave, and like, oh, it was. He's like, dude, it was the weirdest thing. He goes, I still don't have any answers for it, but you can't help but think that it's something
Sure.
to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're always moving, right?
Yeah.
In my area, and I recognize the symptoms of what's causing it. And in my area, it's development every time, because what we see is the same group, man, in our images in the same area. And it doesn't seem like they're trying to leave, and it's been almost a decade. And then in this other area, it's the same individuals every single time for almost a decade. They don't seem to be leaving that area. But when development happens, and sure, they're practicing, in Florida, they do something called a controlled burn, and essentially it's a necessary part of maintaining the ground brush here, man. At times we do get drought, and it can be nasty in these particular ecosystems. It spreads. The brush fire can travel 15, 20 miles an hour in this place, man. A good wind, and watch out, in the wrong season. And so they try to, keep up on that. But, we've noticed patterns to the burning that essentially correlate to where we're, shooting these creatures. And in the end, that was very frustrating. We've witnessed things like endangered species being burned, gopher tortoises by the FWC. We've witnessed it and found them where they're so quick to try to burn an area to get these creatures out, is what we think, that they're not checking for the endangered species that are supposed to be protected in the area. And when we go back through the areas and walk through the smoldering, ashes of what was the beautiful part of the forest that they just burned, where we've been researching, we find the gopher tortoises burned to death, man, and the shells laying around everywhere. You're not supposed to mess with them at all. So we just look at it and feel shame about, these people, trying to. And essentially, it's like, when you try to tell people about this whole thing, it's a non-starter, man. You know what I mean? They have to have the experience, right? There's a very big difference between you and I having this conversation and what we were talking about. Maybe you coming with us sometime into the, the area of the really big ones. You know what I mean? And I can tell you right now, man, when the sun goes down, what's going on around you. There's only one thing that can do what's going on around you, man.
Yeah.
Huge, and it's obvious, and you can hear them. And so it's like, there's a very big difference between, and that disconnect is something that is preventing all of this from moving forward. Not enough people have had this experience, and it's a necessary part of coming to the reality that you are essentially living an illusion here in this country. You know what I mean? Like, what really is going on is when we move into an area, there are residents already there. And when you're doing your timber tear down package into the area, they're in there already. This is North America, and that's the part that no one's understanding. And so what you end up with is a laundry list a mile long of homeowners who are stuck now with trolls and troglodytes and whatever, monkeys, boogers, whatever you want to call them. And there's clans of them that continue breeding.
Yeah.
Getting bigger and bigger. And they're on these private properties. And so people are, who are you going to call? What are you going to do? Nobody wants to hear it. You know what I mean? I mean, what are they going to do? Sell the property. That's about all you can do.
Or you call somebody like me and Mark, and we can come in and we can film and we can
at least educate, you know what I mean? And that's a good part, but in order to do that, you really got to put your time in. And that's why I'm saying, I suggest, with what you got going on, man, if it's like a convenient thing to do, man, bring a bag of apples next time.
I will.
You'd be a popular dude in 2 or 3 trips.
Really? Okay.
Oh man, come on, man. Yeah, that was the best thing we ever did, man.
And
Best thing we ever did. Melanie
and
said, "Let's bring them something to eat." And I was like, "Okay."
and I'm a apple snob. I love me some Honey Crisp. If you ever had ooh,
Come on, man.
the
Yeah.
best,
Yeah. Well,
the
yeah.
best, the
And
best
Honey
apple on
Crisp apple cider.
the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're the best. So yeah, it's crazy, man. And I think you're right. I think that the educating people who are having these problems is, it's a start, but and the this is where like I get excited though, is when these people who didn't believe, then they're like, they have no choice now but to believe, right? I just got, matter of fact, here's another thing. Ready for this? I got an email about, I don't know how long ago it was now, maybe a month and a half, from somebody who said, we've been living on this property that borders the state forest where I go, where you sent me, but literally butts right up to it. And they said, since 2009, we've had these weird things happening at our house. We've had stuff thrown at it so hard that it broke the siding. We've had something tapping on a window in the back of the house, and the window is 9 feet off the ground at night, in the middle of the night. The father is a Vietnam vet, okay? He's a tough old dude. He is a no-nonsense, tough son of a bitch. And he's like, I'm not scared of nothing. I spent time with the Viet Cong, and, brought all my friends back in body bags. I'm not scared of much. He said, but I'm going to tell you right now, there's been multiple times where I've gone out to my car, because he works third shift. There's been times when I've gone out to my car at night and heard something take off on 2 feet through them woods. It sounds like a bulldozer. And he said, and I jump in that car, lock my doors, and take off as fast as I can. So crazy, right?
So
So
Bigfoot's not real in America. It's just a mass of homeowners that say it is.
it's a mass of people who
Confused
have
homeowners.
mental health problems, right?
Yeah.
All these people have mental health problems. They're all delusional.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because they all have the exact same things in common.
Exact.
You know what I'm saying? And yeah.
Exact. So I went to the house.
Oh,
They had sent me some pictures, right? Because I wanted to see something. I went to the house, and the property's perfect, Mark. I mean, it's perfect. It is the absolute perfect place for these things to come in from that forest in the backyard. They can hide behind these different little groups of trees that go all across that whole backyard area. Probably for a couple 100 yards back, there's trees that they can hide behind, all the way up to where the stone wall is at the back of their yard. And even that stone wall, I'm sure that they get down on all fours and just peek up over the top of it and watch them. Because they said to me, they go, it's like they know our schedule. And I said, they probably do.
Yeah.
They probably watch you. You're their TV.
Yeah.
You're their television. You're their entertainment. They're curious. They're probably watching you since 2009. I mean,
yeah. I mean, if you can, I don't know if you did, but if you can, try to get the idea that there's a very primitive species of man
right,
to observe them, and that's really all it comes down to. It's going to be very childlike and yet extremely advanced. Like in the observation, they're gonna do things that you wouldn't even think they would do, and be in places where you would least suspect. If there's a place that they can look into the living room, an angle, a line of sight that they can look into your living room and see you sitting on your lazy boy as you watch TV, narrow it down and point a camera at it, because they're going to show up in that lane. I'm telling you, that's how they work. They'll walk past the entire house on that perimeter and look at the lanes where they can see into that house. And all you really got to do is master that yourself, and you'll catch them. You'll see them. You'll catch them doing it to you.
So it's funny you say that.
Oh, okay.
She sent me a picture from about, I forget if it was like 3 years ago. They put a camera up on a tree in the yard, where they had heard a bunch of racket
Uh-huh.
a few times. The camera was it was a game camera, so it was obviously strapped around the tree, but it was about 8 feet high. They put it up on a ladder. What this picture looks like to me, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but what it looks like to me is it looks like a very hairy little arm, and almost what looks to be the start of the bottom of the palm, right at the bottom of the picture, like it's hanging down in front of the camera. That's what it looks like. It's clearly a hairy something, but it
Wow.
looks to me like an arm. That's what it looks like. Uh, and not only that, they keep waking up with piles of pebbles on their car almost every morning.
Flower petals?
No, pebbles.
Pebbles.
Yep, little tiny rocks in piles one pile on their car almost every day.
So if you can imagine something, right? Check this out, man. Maybe even talk to this guy about it. I don't know if you did, but it sounds to me like they're trying to trade, dude. You know what I mean? And they're giving him all the signals. First, they're trying to get his attention, get him to come out of the house and not run off. And essentially, they kind of understand that we're skittish about them, I think.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it sounds to me like with them leaving stuff that they either took something that wasn't theirs and they're giving that to them to make up for it.
They took the hose, where you hang the hose, the plastic hose thing you screw to your house. They ripped it off the side of the house and they took it. It was gone.
Okay.
Just where it was screwed on, where it was ripped from the house, those pieces that stuck where the screws were, that was the only thing that was left.
Okay, because it's typical for when you're interviewing homeowners, you'll hear things like, "Well, they keep leaving this," and I'm like, "Okay," and I'm like, "Well, have you had anything taken?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, man, this over here and the dog food, and I had to put the dog food over here, and I locked it up in this, and then the lock was broken off. The latch actually got ripped off the thing, and dog food spilled over, but most of it was gone anyway, and this and that." And I'm thinking bear, But then the guy shows me all the tracks, and it's not a bear, man, right? So now what do we have going on? Well, the dude, he comes out of his house, and he's got 2 dead rabbits with their heads gone, and they're gutted, and they're laying there cleaned on his front porch. Well, the dude happened to be an herbalist, and he grew a lot of herbs for homeopathy, different types of medicinal herbs. And it turned out they were obviously educated in which herbs to use because they were borrowing herbs off of this plantation and then leaving rabbits as a trade.
That's the other thing. They have grapes growing, wild grapes growing right by their shed. They just kind of wrap around the trees over there, and they were telling me that they would come out and they'd be cleaned off, but always up high, never down low.
That's the same thing with the cocoa plums, right? The cocoa plum is a Florida grape, so to speak, right? They're completely disgusting and they're very oily, but there's a fat content, protein content, and a light carbohydrate content. You know what I mean? Mostly fat though, but they do the same thing. It's 4.5 feet to 12 feet.
Yeah.
And right at deer level, there's nothing but fruit.
Right.
Right at hog level, there's nothing but fruit.
Right.
Now, and the strangest part of it is it's been that way every year. So it's like what we're seeing in the area, I think, is that certain game, it's possible that they may pick up on the scent of these creatures and understand what's going on a little bit.
And stay away.
Because there are certain trails we find no undulate tracks on, but the only way the trails could be created was a very wide foot. They're not very wide. The trails could be 12 inches wide or less. 18 inches is about the biggest one I've ever found with no undulate tracks on it. There's no deer tracks, no hog tracks, no nothing. But you have a perfectly flat, beaten down, hard trail, hundreds of yards that spurs off into 15 different directions, and they're all single file trails with no undulate tracks. And then when you go into the surrounding areas, you start to find the game trails. And what becomes obvious when you remove yourself from that whole equation and just try to visualize from above what's going on is you've got the game trails and you've got parallel hunting trails all the way along it. And when you examine those trails, you'll find the tracks in key spots. And if you start examining those spots and you put yourself in the position where you're absolutely with no gun, no knife, no nothing, you'll find the spots where they're sitting, and they can get close enough to the game trail that when anything comes through there, there'll be a dig out in some of these spots right under a bush, man, and a 12-inch peek out, and the game trail runs right in front of it. And the dig out is 72 inches long and 5 feet wide. Looks like a hippopotamus dug it. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, man, and it smells, just like your subjects. You know what I mean? It's like got that hominoid, oily, kind of sweet, acrid, urine kind of thing going on. You're like, dude, crawling through the palmettos, we see a lot of that. And the game trails, the palmettos are real thick. And one of the things that make them such a value to the creatures here in Florida is they keep the temperature beneath the plant, the fronds, very low. And in these areas where you've got aquifer less than a foot beneath the surface or sometimes at the surface, and palm fronds bordering it and game trails going through, it's ambush. It's all ambush spot. And that's where we research. We find those, we key into those areas. And really, I'm just at home in them. I find that temperature incline naturally when I'm hiking. I'm getting hot. My body's like, look for some shade, dude. I start going for the shade, and invariably I find those deeper areas where there's a lot of shade. Next thing you know, I'm looking at 16 inches on the ground, or you know what I mean? And I'm like, another area,
You got some monsters down there, though. I mean, we're talking about some stuff that's like, out of this world big. There was a picture we talked about briefly where the head on this thing looked like it could swallow a man whole almost. A giant, a real true giant. I don't know. Okay, so 8-9 foot is huge. I mean, it's massive. It's just that's massive. That's crazy big. When you start talking about anything over 9 foot, 10, 11, 12, 15 feet tall, 2,500 pounds, what, 3,000 pounds? How big? How heavy?
I would need to see the complete figure to give an accurate estimation, but I can tell you that a head that size has to be a couple 100 pounds.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, the individuals that, and this is the interesting part. When I was telling you earlier how we had no camera trouble for years, man. You know what I mean? And then we got a couple of new research areas, and we were in this one particular spot collecting hair samples. And a buddy of mine actually, was looking on a satellite. I got him into the satellite thing, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to go check this place out." And he finds all this hair, and he's 2 weeks into it, and he's got a track that's it's 19 inches almost with the toe at the end of and the big toe is just. It's 3 fingers of mine, and it's like almost, it's just immense, and it's a beautiful track. And so when we saw that, I was like, well, obviously, so we started going, and he did a good job, man, because the area that he's in is very special in that it's a wildlife management area that for some reason they release cows into. And for a while, we were, suspicious of why they would, put cow stock in an actual public wilderness area where you've got bulls. Like, the first time I ever went in this area, there's a 2,000 pound bull, or, probably a 1,200 pound bull. It's probably a 1,200 pound bull. I didn't even see this thing, right? It's black. So it's in the shade, and it's basically doing the same thing.
I can't hear.
Are you losing me?
I don't know what's going on.
Uh-oh. Well, that's strange. You can't hear me?
I can't hear anything.
Yeah, you're off then.
You there?
I can hear you.
All right. Fine. Sorry. My power went off and on.
Oh.
So this whole thing shut down on me.
Okay.
Sorry. So we're back, but go ahead. Continue.
Okay. So when we took a closer look at the area, we started to get suspicious about why they would put cows in a public area. It's dangerous. The first time I went in there, I was charged by a bull.
No.
Now, first of all, I don't know, they might do that in Texas, like just, throw a bunch of bulls into a forest and go, here you go, guys, go hiking.
Yeah.
But I've never heard of that here. And so
No.
this was the first time I ever saw it. And I'm like, why is this happening? Like, this is supposed to be a hunting area.
Yeah.
And so, it took me a couple of weeks, before I really started asking the right questions, because that's really what it comes down to when you're investigating in the field. The wrong questions can lead you months in the wrong direction. And so listening to what the field tells you is the way you proceed, because we're chasing the creatures. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so you got to be out there, and you got to pay attention to the sign always, and then everything that's going on around you. And when we were out there, I happened to hear 2 different times a Sasquatch grunt, and I knew that Brian had found the track, and I knew these cows were in this area for some reason, and I'd seen hunters coming out walking on foot. Ain't seen a deer in 3 years. I mean, horrible. I've grew up hunting here my whole life. I ain't seen a deer here in years. All of this going on, and you're just, meanwhile, you're straddling a 15-incher on the ground, trying not to let anybody see it when he's walking past saying that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, these are situations that we've been in, and we're trying to ascertain exactly what's going on in here. So I agreed to start shooting this place. And what that means is we're going to monitor what's going on, and we're going to start observing. And so when we go in, we shoot key areas that are based on our formula. And I took a group of people in there after a couple of years. Now, we had several different incidents in this place. Brian had a Sasquatch basically go raw and spook a herd of cows right at him to where they stampeded, and he had to jump behind a pine tree. And they were stampeding past him, full speed, man. I'm talking trample speed. Like full-on bulls trampling, cows trampling, mooing, the whole thing. But it was a giant man that started it. And he was very clear about that. You know what I mean? So when we went in there, we knew that we had a situation where first there was the cows, because I'd gone in there the first time and they charged me. Well, the second time I went in there, I went in with Scotty, who was down here from Maine. And it was dusk. And I like dusk a lot. A lot of strange things happen in that failing light, Mm-hmm. And we happened to be in this wrong place at the right time, whichever way you say it. But the sun was going down, and we were in this area, and I had already been, with Brian pulling hairs off the fence, and we'd already caught him on film in this area to the degree where we knew we needed to be researching there. And I was like, okay, man. And so Scotty and I were in there. The light was failing, and we got back along this barbed wire fence, and on the inside of the barbed wire fence was a huge, ragweed bush that was like 15 feet high, man. It was like just dome of bush. And all of a sudden, 60 feet from me, Scotty was about 40 feet to my left on the fence, same fence right in front of us. We're looking for the hare. This sound erupts like a creature is trying to kill a hog. And I mean loud. And in 3 seconds, there's a 300-pound or so boar going 35 miles an hour straight at me from those bushes. It exploded from the bushes and was coming straight at me. And about 9 piglets flying, bouncing, flying, man, like something swatted. I don't know what happened because it was in the bush. They come flying out and get hung up on the barbed wire fence, squealing and flying, and one's like upside down trying to get through the middle rung, jumping it. I mean, it was nuts. And then the sow is what's being killed, and she got loose. Whatever had her, she got loose and took off in a different direction than the piglets. So we got the family abandoning each other right there in front of us, and the male charging me. All this is happening. Scotty goes, whoa, like that. And this thing's coming right at me, man. Tusks, the whole thing. And it was so freaked out, it didn't see me. And I took one step to the left and went, yeah, like this. And went, and threw the brakes on. And I saw this thing freak out, man. And it slid a bunch of dirt and grass up and then took off in the opposite direction. It was the
It
luckiest.
didn't even have any idea you were there because it was so focused on getting the frig out of there.
Getting whatever was trying to get
Yeah.
away from it. The sow, the piglets took off. Sow don't lead the piglets, period. She ran in the opposite direction, man, with her life, luckily. Might have had something broke, I don't know. But whatever it was over there in that bush. And Scotty and I kind of moved down the tree line and got it. And I ended up catching it on film, man. It's a creature, you know what I mean? It was never worthy of putting in a film, but it's what I film, and there's no mistaking it. It's, a set of eyes, you know what I mean? And Scotty and I were like looking at each other when we looked at the film, you know what I mean? So, and then, and we actually did film deer right after that too, that for some reason were just coming into the area. And we were like, man, this place is nuts. You know what I mean? So that was my introduction to that area. And that was just the group of what I would say is normal hominoids, because what's in that place with the cows is not normal. It's not. And I didn't even believe it. I had to shoot it 3 or 4 times before I finally was like, okay, I'm putting stock in this. I got the same creature with a guy in the front of it, and the creature was over here in the clip before it. But when Mike started going over there, this thing stood up. That's when we caught him in the foreground. And then right after that, a clip or 2 later, I caught that device flying around the creatures, whatever it was. I don't know what it was, but I had to slow it down to 1% speed. And
I remember that.
Yeah, we estimated it was traveling at 1,000 feet per second.
What the hell does that?
Like a high-powered BB, but it was it appeared to be cylindrical, approximately 14 inches long, 12 to 14 inches long, and it flew vertical. But when it was flying around the creatures, it was in the bushes, and it would literally tilt up and fly through the trees, and it was like manipulating its way intelligently through the trees in slow motion, and then boom, it took off over Mike, and I lost it, and that's when all of us had camera trouble. And another guy, Matt Williamson from down south, he's got a channel on YouTube. I can't remember what his channel is.
Supernatural Spectrum.
Yes, Matt had a old, because I'm like, dude, we have battery trouble here. Bring an old 35. And he's like, I got one of those old cameras, man. So I got that for a standby if my battery dies on my new stuff. And I'm like, cool. That was when his camera started taking pictures all by itself. A whole roll of film. Yeah.
That DJI Osmo, though, that you have, you said that thing works pretty damn well, huh?
I don't think his Osmo went dead, and my Osmo didn't go dead. That's what I shot.
I gotta get one of those things, man.
I carried that 20-pound rig, hiked it all the way back there on my tripod, and it went dead.
And then you got that little pocket Osmo.
Yeah, and it's a good 100 yards, 125 maybe, or even a little more. And that Osmo nailed that creature, man. Bunch of them.
I gotta get one, man. I gotta save my money. I gotta get one. Damn it.
They're awesome, man. And the minis, you just get the mini. That's all you need. And I highly recommend that because it doesn't look like you're holding anything in your hands.
Right.
And I think that's why I'm not being targeted anymore. My cameras are so obviously cameras. They're professional.
yeah.
In one of them, it looks like I got like a squirrel stuck onto the microphone because I'm using I call it a rat. I got a rat on there, but I can't imagine what they're thinking. You know what I mean? It's just thing on top of this thing, and it's like all intrusive. And I always have problems catching them on film with it. I've done it from a distance with a zoom lens. It seems when I get in there and get all intrusive and start going like this with it and everything,
they're like, yeah, pal.
Their behavior changes. You know, you can tell when you're not catching anything on film because Mark's standing there. It's like a cliche. You know, it must have been my camera because when I walk away, which I have to do now, they're all over Melanie. They'll come forward and smell her. And we've got them smelling her. We've caught them smelling her. I think I put one of those videos up last week where it's in front of her. Like,
maybe you should dress like a woman.
Yeah, right. Well, the interesting thing is this. It's interesting because during the pandemic, Melanie was sick and only I was going in there. And it took about 2 months of just me all the time. But they were responding, man, and they were coming forward for me. That's when I got the one chewing the nectarine, where it's chewing, and you can see that. And Yeah, man, it's chewing.
That's a great clip.
I saw that creature tear through the palmettos to catch it. Man, I threw it, and it was weird. He was watching, and I was like, I know that's Bigfoot watching me, man. It's not a big one, but it's it's good. I know that's Bigfoot. And I went to toss it like this, and as it left my hand, the bush where he was at went whoosh, and the tips of the palmettos went all the way to it. Dude, it hadn't hit the ground 4 seconds. And that thing had gone 60 feet and got it. And then
Unreal.
I watched it all the way back. The palmetto, the tips moving. And it was like lightning fast, man. I was really surprised by that because it was confirming what I saw in 2013 when he jumped the trail, the speed, but what I'd been seeing on film. And what I'd been seeing on film was not, it's like I would say a guy one time was questioning my sighting in 2013 of the guy that jumped the trail. And I estimated that the individual was traveling between 30 and 35 miles an hour in the air because he covered a 22-foot trail in a split second, man, and landed like effortlessly. And what I now know was I watched the hinge. He landed on the balls of his feet, and I watched that mid-tarsal break in action like a spring.
It's crazy.
It's like they're a cross between their foot is a miniature canine design. It's like if you stretch it, if you look at digitigrade, which is canines, you'll see that it's like a spring hinge, the leg itself.
Right.
The foot on a Sasquatch does the same thing, man.
Same thing.
It's in my opinion the one thing that they don't talk about, the mid-tarsal break. Like Meldrum wrote that whole report about it, but we're not hearing about what is the probable leaping abilities of these creatures because that mid-tarsal break exists. There's a musculature attached to that I witnessed. And this creature, mathematical formulas do not apply. Sorry. You have to rewrite it based on new bone structure, new mass, the whole mass index, all of this stuff. Because I had mathematicians telling me that's physically impossible to stop at that speed. I'm like, yeah, for what? An Olympian? What are your math formulas based on, bro? Because this is totally different densities and bone structures and all this. They're going to have to, I'm telling you, what I saw and what we've learned from these 8 years of watching them is that these creatures are above and beyond in human understanding of the speed. What we're used to seeing in our world is what we're used to. And these creatures are outside the scope of that, both their power and their speed. So in addition to that, we have the camouflaging, the natural stuff, the achromatic colors, and we have, the phenomenon of sunlight and what it does. How does it interact with the creatures? Well, if the creature is white-skinned and gray-haired, which basically is translucent hair when you look at it under a microscope, then what you're getting is a three-dimensional color change in real time in sunlight. And what we've witnessed by studying the hair under microcam in varying light situations with full spectrum sunlight LEDs is that when we pull the light away, the hair itself turns dark green. It could be a black hair, it could be a gray hair, and it changes colors. So the absence of light provides camouflage for the creatures as well as being in the light. You would think they're well lit, we should be able to see them. Wrong. A perfect explanation, and one that you will never have to see again, is on our website, Crypto Odyssey at elementor.cloud, and it's 20 seconds explains Bigfoot's camouflage, and all you gotta do is watch that, and you're gonna know what we're saying is accurate about these creatures.
It's amazing. If you guys have never watched it, I highly suggest going to watch it because it's nothing you've ever seen before. That hair quite literally comes to life. It is like sparkling in like these different colors, and I mean it's just crazy.
Do you have a chat on YouTube?
Do I have a chat?
Yeah. Okay.
Like right now, live. Right now? What's that?
You have a chat going right now, or are we streaming?
Yeah, there's a live chat. Yep.
Okay, I'm going to send you a link because your viewers need to see this video. This is something I don't think you've seen yet. What it is a representation of how the creatures hide from us. And the video is 20 seconds long and there's no words in it.
Oh, yeah, maybe I haven't seen this yet.
It's a simple physical representation using cards, white cards, and light. So I'm going to share this right here. And all you have to do, you see where it popped up over here in the chat window?
In the chat window, you put it in private chat. Yep.
Yeah. It's in the private chat. You can share that on your YouTube. Just copy it and then paste it in on the comments in the chat and let people go over there and see it, man. It's 20 seconds long, man. It explains exactly why we're having difficulty pinpointing these creatures. In addition to that, it shows why our cameras are having trouble nailing the creatures down. They blend in so well that our cameras are literally having trouble separating physical shapes because the color is blurring it. The edges of the body, the edges of the face, the edges of the brow. We're only catching certain parts of this where the phenomenon has been blocked in one way or another.
So like where the deep set eyes are, where you're getting to see.
You're going to see the sockets.
The sockets, right.
Yeah, or that's because there's sun on it. But
right.
If there's a bush nearby, the light we can't see as human beings is being broadcast onto his face. See, every single one of those bushes that you see in a forest has a glow coming off of it that you can't see because you only have a 3-vision antagonistic vision system. It's 3 cones. And when you look at something, you don't see the same thing a bird sees.
No.
A bird sees so much more, and the light is what eliminates that for us. And so learning about optics and learning about human vision and its limitations has enabled us to link the sciences to better help explain what's going on with Sasquatch. And this video right here is 8 years worth of work in 20 seconds.
Unbelievable.
And it's just a white card going into some light, changing color. But you can see what happens when a Sasquatch, a white, achromatic, or black, walks through the forest, changes color in real time based on the color of the sunlight.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. I don't even know. You are like, man, when I listen to you talk about these things, it just illustrates how stupid I am.
No, in no way, shape, or form. Because we have to look. None of this stuff has ever been linked before. None of it. And if it wasn't for the fact that I saw the creature looking like he had a swimming pool going all over his face.
I remember you saying that.
Body, I would have never been able to link it because it was then that I started to ask the question, what did I just see?
Yeah.
Why was that so drastic on his face when the plants didn't show anything? Right. He was standing in between 2 green bushes in the wide open with this effect all over his body, changing colors in his face and all this. And it was like, I don't know what I'm seeing. And then suddenly a cloud went over and stopped the sunlight and there was a Bigfoot standing there.
So do you think that maybe that's what people are seeing when they think they're seeing these things cloaking?
Yes, that's exactly what's going on. We've been trying to explain it, but we don't actually reach a lot of people, unfortunately. So, we have to get it out however we can. And in the end, it's very simple to see all of what we're saying in Crypto Reality's work. You're going to see what appear to be green Sasquatch, green creatures. Then they're gray in the same video. Then they're white in the same video. Then they're brown in the same video. Some of them even have a red shade sometimes. It's interesting because when I apply certain filters, the other colors appear.
Right.
So I put a blue filter on. Now I'm seeing red on the creature's face. It's interesting, man. It's really interesting. It's like proving as we go along, and we have hundreds of clips showing this phenomenon on these creatures' faces.
Well, I've watched many of them. Maybe not all, but quite a bit. It's really just fascinating to start finding these things out, right? I don't think it makes it much easier because what are we going to do, right? For our human eyes are still just going to be human eyes, and we can only see what we can see. Obviously, we have technology that can help us, but to only a certain degree, especially when these things are like, oh, look at this dummy's out here with that thing again, trying to look at us. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that's one of the reasons why we encourage the interaction and then the inadvertent documentation.
Right.
What we're doing is we're interacting with the creatures, and then if we get the footage, we're good about it. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
we're trying to feel like, I had somebody ask me, what do I do, from the parking lot on? And I was like, don't leave the parking lot until you film. It's a primary point of interest. It's how any danger from our species enters their area. It's being observed. If they live there, the parking lot is being observed.
Hey, real quick. I know I believe 100%.
It's the only. It's like if it's the only way in, that's where you need to be working.
100%. I totally understand what you're saying. Especially, it's the same concept as if like you knew that there was something out there that was continuously coming near your home, right?
Keep an eye on it.
You're going to keep an eye on the driveway if that's where they're coming in. It's the same premise. So
here's a job as a researcher. Okay, now we understand that. Now go in the area and ascertain where they're going to watch you from. That's all we do.
Right.
That's it. I know how to find them on satellite. Once I get in there, that's what I do. I figure out how they're going to relate to the topography as it pertains to where I position myself, and I control that. So I can thereby control where they watch me from. But I have to understand that concept and understand how to evaluate the topography in order to produce those spots where they can feel safe and still watch us. I can maintain that distance that doesn't make them retreat, but my lens is long enough. We're still working that equation out with the lens, and really we have, but I don't have 100,000. So in the end, it's like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Real quick. So my buddy Fresh, he's from England. He does a lot of work over in some of the forests over there. He's got a question. He said, would you like to record behind you with a 270 degree?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because that's basically wrap around to the front of your peripheral. That's beautiful, man. I'm convinced that they do a lot of stuff behind us from time to time.
You.
Yeah, from Mel's got a 7-minute clip, the one you remarked about where it was sitting across the trail in Bigfoot: A Hidden Reality. You saw it in 2018. That's a 7-minute clip with that creature sitting there behind us, 12 to 14 feet away. I was given a segment and she was filming it. I saw that she had it backwards, but I didn't assume that it was that serious. She actually did a real good job of keeping me out of it, because in the end, I would have changed position and that would have forced the creature back. She caught 7 minutes of it. So,
well, he's working on building one of those things apparently.
That's great, man.
Yeah, he's a talented dude, man. He gets all kinds of stuff. Really, just a talented guy.
That's awesome. That's a great idea.
Another question from the chat. Along for the ride wants to know, Mark, can you tell us about the camera lenses that will help us define Bigfoot?
Yeah, well, I mean, the part that we're getting into now, and what we're only really realizing, is that when we started in 2015, with the lack of understanding of what we were actually dealing with, they were all over us. They were all around us. And right now I'm in a process of reviewing the first 2 years of our work, which is several terabytes of expeditions, where I'm using what I know now. And it didn't take me one file, and I'm already breaking stuff down for, to put out to our Patreon members and some stuff for YouTube. Just looking at, when we're new and we go in the field, we think about that. We think about technology. We think about a lot of these things that we think are going to give us a head start. And I can honestly tell you that if you want to catch the creatures on film, if you know you're in the area or you have them in the area, start observing a lot closer what's going on with the bushes, because they're not able to use an open spot and not have you see them. So, it's learning to identify what's already there. That's important, right? So if you're going to get a camera, any good camera that shoots in 4K is what I would go for. Unfortunately, with that, you'll also have to have a computer that processes in 4K. There's a lot of different stuff that goes with buying that camera, being able to examine the footage, learning how to use workstations. I use Final Cut Pro 10. There's 100 different workstations. A lot of people like Vegas Pro. I find that, when I got into this, I bought one piece of equipment, not realizing that the other one has to be compatible.
Yeah.
Compatibility is the most important thing when you're buying all this stuff. So where technology is concerned, we were getting the job done, and I'm reviewing footage right now that was shot in 1080p with Coleman video glasses. The reality of the situation is, as people who are new into this and going in, even if we think we know what's going on, we really don't. The degree with which these creatures can get very close to you, the distance they can get to you, and you not know it. You won't accept it. We're trained to not accept these uncomfortable feelings that come on us in situations. We're taught to ignore anxieties that pop up suddenly. We're taught to dismiss little sounds. Those were the things that ruined our research. We knew something was going on.
Yeah.
We failed to point the camera many times because we didn't see something, not understanding that they blend in so well. So my recommendation is, get a workstation, get a computer that you can work on, get a workstation, and get a camera that's compatible, and we'll shoot footage that can, be received in that workstation. If you can do that, just start reviewing the footage that you shoot. And when you shoot 1 minute clips, and you shoot them very stable. You don't pan the camera in any direction. If there's a sound, yeah, obviously, but you want to shoot a clip in front of you. And then what you do is you move the camera to the edge of the last clip you just shot and shoot that clip. If you've got a circumstance, then you want to go in and you want to get on that with the camera. If you've got a zoom lens, you know what I did, honestly, man? I was at my brother's house one time. It's got me really good with manual focus and manual zoom. And that's the best way to do it. You have more control over what you get in your end shot, but you got to get good with it. So I took an action figure and put him out in the bushes, a Bigfoot action figure. And he was in my backyard, and in my brother's house, my little nephew had that action figure. I bought one and put him out there, and to practice using manual zoom. And you get used to it, man. And I can tell you right now, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have got good with my camera, and I wouldn't start catching them on film. So whatever camera you buy, get to know your technology, get to know its limitations, and then learn how to apply the camera around the limitations that it has in your research. If you know the camera is only good for 50 yards with any good clarity, then don't set up shots that are beyond that. Get a camera for that and use it for that. You know what I mean? But those are the main things, man. I mean, early on we were wandering around, wondering what was in the bushes around us. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until I started getting better with my equipment and understood how to use a workstation and zoom in on that footage and really start looking at what was going on. Maybe I shouldn't trust my eyes, I thought. I know I heard all this stuff. Why didn't I see it? Well, maybe something else is going on. And that led us into where we're at now, one step at a time.
Yeah, man, the education that people are saying it in here, the education that you're giving people for free about this stuff. But it's true though, man. This stuff is so valuable to people like me who, I can only become better by following in the footsteps of people like you who've been doing this for as long as you have, right? Because I'm a baby at this. I've been doing this for just a handful of years compared to you. So this stuff is super important for us because at some point, right, I don't think I'll ever find it in my lifetime, which means we won't figure it out in your lifetime. I mean, you're not that much older than me, but I'm just saying, like, this stuff has got to be kind of passed along, so that everybody who comes, can continue learning and growing, and so that we have a chance at least, because for so long we didn't even have a chance with these things. I think we're getting to a point now where,
well, you have to understand, man, their side can carry on, and it is that it's a war of attrition, right? And so their side is organized, and they're organized scientifically, they're organized politically, they're organized through their officialdoms and handling everything.
And they got a lot of money.
They have the proper legal terms on the wildlife areas that the creatures live. We've done research down to the legal terms, figuring out why this area is labeled a district instead of, and in the end, the laws can be orchestrated differently and applied differently inside different designations, districts, counties, cities, wildlife management areas. There's so much stuff that we're learning, and it's so important that we pass it on because, and really up until recently, there really didn't seem to be any kind of an organization in this whole thing. But I think that that's really where, crypto reality is headed, man, is trying to organize this. And I think that, once things do eventually get organized to where, people can at least, count on a certain system.
Yeah.
Something that they can, belong to, where there's an educational standard in this, because mainstream science, and like I said, they're all organized, and we have to begin that process if we're ever going to compete on an information transmission level. You know what I mean? They crush us. They transmit information about Bigfoot not being real everywhere, every day, constantly.
Yeah.
And the primary sources of education are in that this is difficult to prove, which is nonsense. That's what the shows are teaching everyone, that this is so hard to prove. And it's like, give me a break, man. We have had no funding, funding.
None.
And we're where we're at. And so in looking at all of it, it's cost us our lives essentially. But in the end, it's like, we look at it like, this is how we have to give you this information, and we have a lot more, that's for sure.
And somebody said, and I forget who it was who told me this, but it's such a great quote, is they've locked people up for murder on much less evidence than we have of these creatures.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had an ex-FBI guy pretty much tell me, man, he's like, at this point, I've reviewed all your evidence, man. He's like, I've been paying you for years. He's like, they'll have to prove it's not.
Right.
You have so much. It's overwhelming. If you file under the right terms, they will have to prove it's not. And he's like, dude, it's that far along now. And so
I forgot what I was reading the other day too. It was something about like anthropological terms, and that there was this change of term in this certain book, in a college book about apes, and damn, I got it. I'm gonna have to look it up because I wonder
what decade that was.
Huh?
What decade was it?
No, this
is the thing. When you start seeing stuff like that where they're changing terms, I always go back in the investigation, start looking at what was going on in the time period, what was going on, what term was changed, what was going on in that science at that time, and you invariably will find why they changed that term.
Dude, this is recently, and they say the word Sasquatch. They use the word Sasquatch. They recognize this as a real thing in this anthropology book. It's a college textbook, and I don't know where it's from.
It could be that the context that they're using it in is Native American folklore or cultural traditions, that kind of thing.
No, this was to illustrate literally that this is a real thing.
Wow.
Like that, I can't remember every word, but I promise you that this ended the book. This finalized the book with this paragraph that stated that the anthropology views this thing as a real classified being.
So they're taking a stand.
Yeah, some book is.
They're taking a stand.
Some book at least.
Somebody, is it a college book that they're going to educate students with, or is it?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, This is what I talk about, the war of attrition, right? So at some point they understand that this is going to tip.
Yeah.
And so we have to begin educating people on this. And who is it that's most likely the first people? Well, who's been talking about it? Anthropologists. That's who's been talking about it.
I'm going to find out the title of that book. I'm going to get that piece so that I can share it with you and with everybody on here. Because I just saw it, but it's hard to keep all the information, and I couldn't tell you every word in that paragraph, but I remembered the part That was how they ended the book. Was this thing is
I
real?
gotta see that, man. Yeah, I gotta see that. I definitely want to see that.
Yeah, I'll get it. I'll find it. I'll just
Let me answer this guy's question.
Yeah.
360 camera is a great idea. But like I said, 360 cameras prompt new issues, and mainly with processing the footage. 360 cameras are extremely difficult to process footage on. As a matter of fact, I've tried. I've only been able to process 180 so far. Apps may have come further. I'm not sure. But I would definitely look into the processing of the film, or you ain't never going to see it. Because the cameras, the 360 cameras, they don't have view screens. You're not going to watch it while you're filming it. You know what I mean? So you got to have processing. And when I talk about processing, I'm talking about the Apple M2. That's what you need. And you need 16 terabyte external processors that are running at M2 speeds, man. You know what I mean? And lots of memory, man. That stuff is... It's 8 4K cameras. One 4K camera, one of my movies, weighed 1.2 terabytes.
Yeah.
Impossible. Weighed 1.2 terabytes. And that was one 4K stream. Multiply that by 8. You're going to need a 16 terabyte processor, a hell of a lot of RAM. So, yeah. But, yeah, that camera is incredible. That was what I was trying to do for everyone, was take them with me. You put on a virtual reality mask, and you go live in the field of Zaskey in virtual reality. That was going, man. Yeah.
So badass.
Yeah, I know, man. I know. We just, with everything that's gone on, things are changing now. We're reevaluating, we're restructuring, and we're trying to hit it at a different angle.
I'm just going to take a damn flight down there. Screw the virtual reality. I'm going to show up on your doorstep one day and be like, I'm here now, bro. Now what?
You're going to have so much fun telling your friends what happened.
Mark, I'm going to tell you right now, man. I promise you that of everywhere that I have on my list, and I have a list of places that I want to go, right? And on that list is, for any Bigfoot researcher, hobbyist, lover of the subject, obviously, the Pacific Northwest. I want to go to the Pacific Northwest. Who the hell doesn't want to go there if you're in this field, right? Just because of the history there. That alone makes you want to go. Even if I don't see anything, just so I could say, like, I went to Bluff Creek, man. So cool. Like, but number one on that list is your area. It is. It's your area because of all the stuff that you've been getting. I mean, it's like, I need to experience it. I need to see it. I need to feel it. I need to be there. Like, and I hate Florida. I'm sorry. I can't stand it down there. I hate it. I'm fat. I don't like the heat. I sweat a lot.
I know, man. I don't even know how I got through the first the first 6 years, because it took me 2 years to lose 96 pounds.
96
The first
pounds?
6 years, I was 100 pounds overweight, man.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't start there. Obviously, it went up, but yeah. Well, 76 pounds. I put on 76 pounds.
Maybe I need to go down there then. Maybe I'll lose the weight.
I lost it, man. I'll tell you what, though, man. It was hard.
It's not easy, Mark. I'm trying. It is not easy. It went on so fast.
Man, I did keto, man. Keto kicked it into high gear. I was losing 20 pounds a week, man.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't exactly healthy, and I was suffering from it. But at the end, I was glad I did. It was emergency, though. I had to do it.
I'm there. I'm about there, dude.
I had some health issues, buddy. I hit 50, and it was like, no, man, you're gonna die.
I'm about there.
Man, I'm losing the weight now.
Yeah.
That was it.
I got to do something because it doesn't even. I just don't feel good. My knees hurt. My back hurts. My friggin' ankles hurt.
I never, in a million years, thought I would reach my high school graduation weight. I'm 185 pounds today. I just weighed myself 2 hours ago.
I wish I could. I weigh 287 right now.
That's where I was at.
Yeah, I'm like between 6'2" and 6'3". I weigh 287. It's like all belly.
That was me, man.
Hey,
look, I cooked in Italian restaurants, and I'm a chef, too. And I cooked, man. And my favorite food's Italian food. You couldn't stop me.
All carbs.
Yeah, man. I'm Italian crazy. I'll eat a whole calzone by myself for lunch, and then eat another one for dinner.
Yeah. And in between,
like the cheese and the pepperoni and the tomatoes and all of it, I love it.
And in between there, I'm gonna eat a half a pint of ice cream too.
Yes, come on, brother. And some of those Hanover's cheddar pretzels, the chunky pretzels.
Oh my God, it's so good, dude.
Yeah, well, these are all the things I don't touch anymore.
Oh.
Now I'm on NutriBulleted, eating 5 pounds of broccoli a month and 15.
I can't. My problem is like I can't even imagine eating like that.
I couldn't either.
When I was a fighter, I had to maintain a certain weight, and obviously I was younger. It was different. Like my body worked much differently. I was much more efficient, but I ate very healthy, and I had to do that for years and cut weight constantly for fights and whatnot. And so I didn't get to enjoy a lot of those things, right? And now, like I enjoy them a little too much.
Yeah, you went off the chain, man.
I went off the chain, bro.
Yeah, well, that's okay, man. That's the American dream, man. So in the end, but this is the American nightmare. You hit 50 and you realize all of that stuff left these deposits.
Oh, of course, I know.
Body, and I'm like, whoa. Now I'm like rheumatoid, all this stuff. 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. Or actually, that was like 7 years ago. But
did you hit pre-diabetic?
No, I had diabetes. I had blood pressure. You name it. And I was having chest pains all the time and muscle cramps and can't sleep and apnea. And I don't have none of that.
Yeah.
I willfully traded all of my pizzas and all that stuff for none of the other stuff anymore. And now, if I eat one of those things, I feel the arthritic, tendencies trying to come back just from snacking on it one time. So I'm like, I'm very aware now. My body's clean, and I try to keep it that way because, when you get over 50, man, you start hearing this one's going, that one's gone, this one's gone, that one's gone. And man, it's like COVID hit, and I was like, I'm going to die if I catch this thing.
Right.
That's what's going to kill me. I smoked for 37 years.
Yeah.
I just have my lungs checked. I have no free radicals. I have no, I'm doing good, man. And I'm proud of myself because, man, it took everything I had to get used to it.
Sure.
I'm just telling you, it wasn't like I quit cold turkey, buddy.
No.
You couldn't. It was like, I had a pizza, garden it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm still going to have this once a month, man. Back up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
I live by, I don't care what anybody says. You can kiss my ass if you don't agree with me. I live by the greatest pizza in the world, period. Oh. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Pepe's or Sally's or Modern in New Haven, Connecticut.
I haven't heard of anything in New Haven. But
they are consistent.
Pepe's.
Pepe's Pizza. Consistently every single year. Food Network, every food blog, every pizza website, every year, these places, they're all on the same street. They're all been there forever, man. And they're wood-fired ovens, right? And these ovens have been cooking pizzas in them for hundreds of years or 100 years. Oh, but every year, these places are ranked in the top 5 pizza restaurants in the country. Pepe's and Sally's usually go back and forth between number 1 and number 2 every year.
Man, you're killing me. Because that's my thing. I was a connoisseur of fine Italian dining, sir. And,
brother.
And when pizza actually joined that category,
dude.
It has.
Yeah.
They produce some really good pies nowadays in America, man. It's like nuts.
That Pepe's is the greatest pizza I've ever had in my life. And like I said, I'm a foodie. I love food.
I might have to take your word on that one because I did actually I saw that place on TV before. So
have you ever seen, I know we're off topic. I will get back on real quick. But have you ever seen the guy, Dave Portnoy? He's he does a show on YouTube. It's called One Bite. And he goes around the country.
Is he related to Mike from Dream Theater?
I don't know.
The drummer?
I don't know.
I wonder.
But Dave started Barstool Sports, which was bought by like Fox or whatever for like $400 million. And he's
got a pizza show.
Right. But here's a regular guy though. He started that in the back of like one of those free magazines that they used to have in like the corners of the street.
Oh yeah.
That's how he started. He literally pretended to be multiple different writers for his own sports magazine until somebody was like, "Hey, this is a good magazine." and they picked it up, and then it became this giant thing. But anyway, he's got that show,
That's
and he
awesome.
goes around the country, and he eats at almost every pizza place in the country he's trying to eat at. And he always goes one bite. You know the rules. He's supposed to take one bite and then give it a score. He always takes like friggin' 15, eats like 3 slices, and then but he even said, he goes, the greatest pizza in America is in New Haven, Connecticut.
No kidding.
It's incredible, dude.
See, I'd like to just go there. I'm like the ball of twine guy, obsessed. With pizza, that's my thing. I would, I make pizza from scratch.
Dude,
all of it, and have for 25 years.
When people ask you, like, if there was one food you could eat for the rest of your life, what would it be? Yeah, it's pizza.
Well, yeah, I always say the same thing. It would be pizza, and it would be a short life, but still.
But it would be pizza. It would be a tasty life. It would be a tasty.
It would be a tasty life, though. Yes.
Anyway, so we got way off topic, but who cares?
Well,
whatever.
And that shows the value to us, at least.
Right. I wanted to ask you real quick, because these were things that I found when I was out too, and I wanted to know if you've ever seen anything like it in your travels. I don't think you guys have. Well, you have pine trees down there, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so when we were out in the woods, we found this pile of pine cones, and I'm talking, we were, I don't know how far we had walked into the woods, man. If I had to guess, we were probably 3 or 4 miles into the woods, like way out there, not near anything. We were deep in some real thick stuff. We found these mounds. Like, it was the weirdest thing, man. There were these mounds that were like 6 feet long by 3 feet high, in these areas, and there was like 4 here, like 3 over there, 4 over there. But then we found, and I wasn't going to touch them. I was like, I'm not digging in these things. I don't know what's in there, but it was just weird. They were almost like perfectly shaped mounds. Okay, it was not natural. I promise you that. And it was off trail, way into like the nothing. But then we found this mound of pine cones, and it was 5 feet wide, 5 feet long by 2 feet wide by 3 feet deep of pine cones. You know how many pine cones that is?
It's like 100 probably.
Oh no, way more than that.
Oh no,
way more. 3 feet deep of pine cones by 5 feet long. And
let me ask you this: were they green or were they open?
They were green.
So they were still closed.
They were still closed.
Okay, that's a refrigerator.
That's what we said.
The cupboard. That's the cupboard.
That's what we said. And
then
then
just collecting them up, stashing them over here, and then they're going to open up, and that's when they can eat them. They can't eat the seeds until the things actually pop open.
Right.
Well, I've been hit by slobber-covered green ones that have chewed and all this on the back of my neck. I got whacked in 2015 by one, and he was in the bushes behind us. We caught him on film. But they eat those things, man. They eat those things. Dude, you guys are in a great area, man. You know what you do? This is what you do. If you doubt me, leave the apples on top of the pine cones.
That's a very good idea.
Yeah, man. Leave the apples on top of the pine cones.
Right. And you know what? Here's the other thing that's weird is right around the corner from this, I found a tree that was down. It was an old tree. It was like, kind of in the stages of dying, but you could tell it had been down for a while. But it had a whole bunch of branches coming off, kind of going this way, this way, this way, this way. And on those branches and on the main trunk of the tree, in this one area, we were finding shells of nuts. I forget what kind of nuts they were, but they were like lined up on this tree, perfectly on the branches.
Yeah, squirrel's not gonna leave them lined up perfectly. I mean,
that's what I said.
It could be a squirrel just chewing on them, leave them on the tree, because I see them doing that in my yard. But lining them up like that, no, bro.
Dude, it went up and down the trunk, up and down every branch that came off of it. There was a line of these things perfectly.
Sounds like somebody's really bored eating nuts.
Dude, so weird. Just weird.
Sitting there for hours, chewing them up, putting the shells in a line.
Yeah, and I've heard
you guys got some bored creatures, and I bet they jump at the chance to interact with you guys. They probably already have, and you just didn't know it. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, wait. Okay, so I forgot to tell you the weirdest part. This is the weirdest thing. So we're hiking, right? We get to we were past the pine cones at this point. We came to this spot where it kind of curved, and it kind of went around a corner. But as we're rounding this corner, now there's a trail there, right? These trails in this forest go real far, real far. I mean, there's trails all through it. But once you get to a certain point, when you're way back there, they get much more narrow. Obviously, people haven't been on them as much and all that stuff. And the surrounding areas are thicker and whatever. I look to my left, and there's a big elm tree that's probably about 14 inches wide, just facing it from the front, right? Big old tree. And leaning against it perfectly is a stick that's about that big around, right? And it's perfectly in the middle of the tree. And now that's not weird. So I'm like, oh, this looks like a great walking stick. It was probably 5.5 feet tall, right? Perfectly straight. So I grab it, and I just was looking at it because I'm like, it's kind of weird that it's way out here. We haven't seen, all the times I've been out there, I'd never seen anybody hiking out there that far. Never. Not one person. So I'm like, kind of weird. So I put it back on the tree. We walk probably another 100 feet, maybe, and we can still see behind us to where that tree is. 100 feet's not that far. I could still hear everything around me. We go up, 100 feet, we stop for a minute, we're looking around, and we're like, all right, we probably turn back and go back to the car, because we kind of had lost the feeling that there was anything going on in this area. Turn around to go back, and I said to myself, I'm going to pick up that stick one more time. I want to see if there's any hair or anything stuck on it. The stick was gone.
Yeah.
It was, Mark, it was gone. It was not on that tree. It was gone. And I'm like, where's the stick? Where's the stick? We were maybe 100 feet. I don't know. We could have been 80, 70. We were not far. We could see, if I turned around, I could see that tree perfectly. And the stick is gone. So I'm like, I started feeling like I was going crazy. I'm like, dude, I'm asking my buddy, I'm like, Mike, that's the tree, right? That's the tree. And he's like, yeah, that's the tree. I'm like, where is this stick? And so we start walking around behind the tree and into the little, area over there. About 15 feet from that tree on the ground, laying just nicely on the ground, was that stick.
No kidding.
How do you explain that?
So you leaned it up against a tree.
I put it right back where it was, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the fast, really quiet people that are blending in. I mean, I'm telling you, man, when they're moving around and they're moving fast, especially if they're out in the open, they can be real quiet, slipping across between two trees. Sometimes I think, if you hear them, it's because they really don't care if they want you to hear them, or, you know what I mean? Because there's so many times where same kind of things, we go in one day and the whole area has, vine growth that it just looks like it's been thrown up there. And then 12 hours later in the morning, the very next morning, you go in and the sun's blasting and you're like, are we even in the same spot talking to each other? Like, where's all the stuff that was here yesterday? You know what I mean? And when you go and you question yourself over it, but as the years go on and the dozens of times of that build up, and, after 4 or 5 times, you started saying, well, let me just film this real quick. And then tomorrow when we come in, if it's different, we'll film it again and we'll compare the two. And you start seeing they're putting stuff in there. I have a shot in Florida here. This is an example of some of the lengths that they'll go to. There's a parking lot. It doesn't look like a parking lot, but it is. And it's on a cow pasture. And there are palm trees lined in the front of it about 50 yards from the fence. And you're about 40 feet back where you park your truck from the fence. And I have shots, and I didn't know until after I examined it. And really, I didn't know until 3 or 4 times of going back. And I just happened to look up. And I have footage that they had another palm tree on top of 2 palm trees. So they had the top of a palm tree in the top of a palm tree, and the root, or basically they broke it off, up in the top of a palm tree, and they had bushes all over the palm tree in between two palm trees, and there was one up on top of it. Now I was sitting in the truck and was just, you know, shooting footage from inside my truck, waiting for everybody to get there when I filmed this incident. Then I started looking and I got real curious because it looked odd. And so I got out and I filmed it, you know, a little bit closer, and I happened to notice some other stuff. So I started filming that, and we caught him on film. Well, the next time I went, and I just showed this to Melanie too, again, there's nothing in between those two palm trees except 20 foot of air. There's no palm tree stuck up in there. And so I know beyond a shadow of a doubt from our own documentation that they will bring cover and set it up. Where they're going, if they value that spot and it needs cover for whatever the reason is, and I can tell you the reason is, I think they're watching the parking lot. They're absolutely watching that parking lot. And it's funny to me because I think, and based on what we've seen, that they'll go to great lengths to achieve the ability to watch you from a comfortable position. And some of it seems like arrogance. I'm sorry, but it does.
It does.
It seems like arrogance. And so at this point, I don't put anything past them. And you wouldn't believe the places I catch these things on film. I mean, I'm showing pictures, man, and there's no doubt what it is. I get thousands of people telling me, man, I can see that Sasquatch. Yeah. Well, if you had any idea where that thing was, you'd probably be calling the governor or something. You know what I'm saying? People have no idea where these creatures are. No idea. And I'm just going to say this. We regularly have people jogging around us while we're filming creatures. And yes, a jogger has seen a creature while we were filming it. And it's like, I couldn't even believe it, you know, but it's evidence, again, that we develop their areas. We put fences around wilderness areas talking about this is private now. Private for who?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we're driving our cars all down the street all day long, and they're sitting up in trees watching the highway, just watching.
Dude, I drive the 95 regularly, I-95 up here between Rhode Island and Connecticut, and then there's a stretch there, right where Connecticut meets Rhode Island, and also Route 11 out here, which you guys wouldn't know, but it's a you know, kind of a smaller highway that runs between Salem, Connecticut, and then meets up with Route 2, which runs to the capital, which runs to Hartford. But Salem's a very rural area. That on that stretch of Route 11, on the side of that, on both sides of that highway, is all woods. It's all woods, thick woods. And I see on the sides of that highway, every single time I drive it, are tree break, all pointing at the road from up on the ridge. All of them. And it's this, and there's and that stretch on 95 on where Connecticut and Rhode Island kind of meet, and then it goes into Rhode Island, is the same thing, except not only am I seeing tree breaks on the side of the road, I've literally seen what look like structures. They'll be there for friggin' 4 or 5 days, and then they're gone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you learn about them, right? So everywhere you go, you're seeing this now, and it really is, it really is going to be determined. I think eventually that, you know, it's like we're saying, man, that you know, these creatures were here, dude, and we're building our civilizations, and we're spreading our towns, and we're sprawling. And when we're doing that, we have to cut into new ground. And in that new ground, we're displacing these creatures, man. I've interviewed many people over the decades, and I can tell you that there are situations that will be coming to a head in several different states because of the development, if something isn't done about this. What's come to our attention, and I think the reason why we're having trouble now, is we're documenting what actually is causing the problem. And it's the really big ones. I think that I have difficulty at times dealing with the notions that I've been confronted with and about our reality. And I see this as probably what it is that's causing the lack of interest, is that when people start to get into this and the truth eventually does come out, The rest of it is going to have to come out at some point, and that is that there are legitimate, what people would consider legitimate biblical giants, man.
Yeah.
They're enormous creatures, enormous, and it's the only thing that can really explain some of the damage that we're seeing in certain regions of this country.
Yeah.
You know, I'm talking about, like, you know, I would have to picture in the early days 2 or 3 Sasquatch of normal size, what I thought they were back then, taking those trees, jamming them in the ground upside down over in the Pacific Northwest. Whereas now I understand that it could be one individual doing that. One.
You've seen those videos, right? There's a couple
One
videos.
giant.
Yeah. You've seen the videos, I'm sure. There's a couple videos that have been posted over the last couple of years of these gigantic, like 100-foot pine trees, and there's a drone flying overhead, and this pine tree is going woo, 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 back and forth like this so violently, and there's no reason, there's no wind, nothing around it's doing this, just this one tree is doing this, and it looks like at any moment it's just gonna go crack and snap off. Yeah. And it's like, what's doing that? What is doing that?
Something angry about the drone flying above its head,
I'm sure.
You know what I'm saying? And especially something huge like that. But it's not just that. I mean, look at that video Thinker Thunker put out. You can see pine trees being ripped out of the ground.
Oh my God, yeah.
Being ripped out of the ground, root ball showing and everything, being carried off.
Yeah.
From a distance. I mean, you know, so I think what we've eventually learned is what really is going on. And that these creatures, we don't really know a whole lot about them. And, you know, we have questions now. My main questions are, how old do these things actually get? And is that why we're seeing this? Is that they just keep growing? Is Patty a juvenile?
Yeah, because what they said, he's like 6'3" or 6'4" or something like that. Yeah. Isn't that what they said?
Or is it a question of the genetics produce such a variation? And this is one of the ways it was explained to me back in 2012 by Melba, was that there's a hierarchy within the genome itself, so that within the family group, you can get a more pure Sasquatch DNA individual. Is that what we're seeing in these giant individuals? That this is what pure Sasquatch DNA or purer Sasquatch DNA looks like. That was the way it was described to me. She said basically the further north you go seems to be the purer DNA. We didn't expect to see any of this in the South. And for a long time, it's been said that, oh, they just have little ones. They're called skunk apes. And we always, you know, thought, oh, the Pacific Northwest. No, man. No. They're here.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. Really big. Yeah.
I mean,
22-inch track. I've got them.
So 22 inches, I mean, if you do the math, roughly what they kind of say the percentage-wise is, that's got to be at least around 14 feet, 12 to 14 feet.
I would say 12 to 14 feet, man.
Yeah.
But now, it sounds ridiculous until you catch one of these things on film in front of a man, and we have done that.
That's what I'm saying. That picture, that one picture is probably the most bone-rattling, jarring picture that I've ever seen in this field. That picture is something out of a nightmare, just because of the sheer size of this thing. It looks like it could go, oh, let me just take you, ooh, okay, and just swallow that guy whole.
Yeah.
I mean, the head on that thing is so big, Mark.
And you know, you from a research standpoint, it wasn't something that at first I was even willing to accept. I was just like, okay, well, now I know that, you know, this is some kind of a paradolic situation going on here. You know what I mean? There's no way this is possible. But like I said, when you confirm it on multiple expeditions to the exact same tree line, and you literally witness a stampede of cows coming out of the forest and no one's over there. Like, these cows were erupted into a stampede and we were right there. It was like almost a repeat. There were 7 of us, you know, all of our batteries are dying. All this crazy stuff's going on. I mean, it's nuts, man. I never in a million years thought that the investigation would lead us into where we're at now. But I always said the same thing, and I'll continue to say it, man. We find it, we film it. That's all there is, man. If I'm shooting in an area and the bushes are moving, and there's a squirrel on the footage, I'm going to show it because that's what we caught.
Right.
It's not my fault that when I point the camera in these bushes, giant hominoids are appearing.
Yeah.
They were there before I ever showed up. I'm just catching them on film, and cameras don't lie.
Right.
Cameras record reality. Or
That's
we
right.
wouldn't be using them to record reality.
Right.
You know
Miss Trey is, you're absolutely right. This is what Mark said in Florida. The problem is that they built up the coastal area all around them, pushing them all into the center of the state. Now they've nowhere to go. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's exactly what's going on. And it's happening all over the state of Florida. We have the same exact situation in our belt going on in other belts. It's going on in the Panhandle. It's just micro situations, and you can see it. You're gonna if you were to take all of the Sasquatch in Florida and all the groups, and you highlighted those groups in red, you would see development on the outside of every one of those groups at some point in a circular. I mean, it's just what's happening, and the development isn't moving away; it's moving in.
It's
And
encroaching
in
more.
those little spots, you're going to end up with a map that looks like a string of pearls with little forest corridors leading to each little forest section that no one will ever want to go in.
What's going to happen?
Eventually, they're going to eat all the food.
I was going to say, what's going to happen when they've pushed them into such a small area, and now they're on top of each other? Now you have the giants on top of them.
They're already bringing cows, setting them free. Here in Florida, they're setting cows free in the wilderness. You tell me what needs to be fed a cow.
Yeah.
So we're already there. That's what I'm saying. Now, we already just witnessed them selling off thousands of acres of the exact ground I'm describing that these creatures live in. Not 50 miles west, not 10 miles west, not 1 mile west, but the exact belt that these creatures live in. They just passed legislation to develop it all. And you tell me, who's going to have to be called to get rid of a group of creatures that large? There's only one entity that can be called to do that. So we're waiting for that to happen.
Who's the entity? The government?
The army. You're not going to get those creatures out of there with like nice language. They're going to have to call it. You're not going to be able to go, come on, guys, we're going this way now. You need to get out of here. We're going to build your house. We're stealing your land.
Has anyone tried? Has anyone tried? Like, hey.
Yeah, I think they've been trying for a long time.
My name's Kyle.
Controlling the food sources and controlling the outskirts of the areas by digging huge ditches, trying to isolate the areas the best way they can. And I think they also have, basically, we found evidence of some type of an electronic fence. It uses electromagnetics and it damages cameras.
Deb, didn't you tell me that they took trees and leaned them against this fence so that they can get over it? Didn't you say that?
I found palm trees in 2012, I think it was, or 2011 that were ripped out of the ground with huge 15-inch tracks walking alongside the drag mark, 100 yards. And he put it on top of a barbed wire fence, and then the bark was worn off the top of the tree. The fence was all squished down. And you can see where he was like, I'm going over this fence, man.
You know what I mean? I love it. It's what makes me love them, though. Really, honestly, because they're so like, hey, keep trying, pal. Bite me. It ain't gonna do nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just know the situation here is obviously coming to a head when cattle are being brought in.
Yeah, that's a problem.
I look at that and I like, okay, obviously, since the deer hunters can't find anything to kill in here for years, the cattle became necessary. Why are the cattle necessary? Well, they don't want them to walk out and start looking. If they walk out and start looking for food, and you or 100 motorists happen to see one of these creatures walk out because it's starving, you know what I mean?
If you got an angry, hungry, 14-foot, 2,500-pound giant there is some major problems that are about to happen, especially when these things, the physical abilities of these things are so incredibly just supernatural, superhero, whatever you want to call it. They are.
Well, I once heard a military story. I don't know if it's true, but a guy said that a group was sent into the Cascade region to figure out what would pacify the creatures because they want to put a pipeline in it.
I think I heard this story. Go ahead.
Those guys went missing. So they sent in another crew to find those guys, and they encountered the creature. It was 14 feet, took 1,000 rounds or over 1,000 rounds and 3 203 rounds to take it down. Yeah. That's the story. I look at that and it's like, I can tell you that we are dealing with creatures like that down here. So I'll end with this, right?
Yeah.
What I'm expecting is exactly that, because you're not gonna. They're embedded. They've been here for thousands of years. We're the interlopers in this situation, and I don't think they're going to respond kindly to being forced. Pacification will have to be by force. That's the bottom line. And I think that we know that the first indigenous peoples that we encountered here, it took pacification by force, right? My heritage, my native heritage, and I look at all that stuff, and it's like the same thing has been going on. It's never stopped, and really, the American Indians are the Native Americans are aware of that. They know. Well, these creatures were in there. In the bushes, watching the European settlers slaughter them all up and down the eastern seaboard. Sasquatch watched it. They watched the new guys come in and take it by force. So why would they not? Why would they want to not be with us? Why would they want to stop trading? Because they traded with Native Americans.
Right.
It's on the eastern seaboard. We have records. And so in the end, it's like, we don't recognize that there's another people out there who've already passed judgment on us. But I can tell you the indifference that we experience and that you experience and every other researcher and everybody experiences is evidence of that. You know what I mean? It's obviously being passed down. I mean, what else could it be? You know what I mean? We're violent, nasty, greedy, rude, inconsiderate creatures that don't bother to ask permission from their perspective.
Yep. So, and we were the opposite of them completely. They live in harmony with everything around them, and we destroy it.
Yeah, they're symbiotic, and yeah, they put a drain on the economy, so to speak, of the environment wherever they go, because they clean the game out temporarily, but then they move on to the next section, and that place replenishes.
Right.
They don't tear it down so it can't reproduce everything. You know what I mean? So yeah, symbiosis, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Harmony.
And that's one of the reasons why I think it says in the Bible, the meek shall inherit the earth. It ain't us. And it sure as hell ain't the meek humans. They're the only ones that are going to be left because they live in a meek means. They're small. They don't do what we do, but they'll still be here. And that 45% of the United States that ain't had boots on the ground yet, right? We'll have everything else, and they'll be all in there partying. So,
well, Mark, it's been 2 hours. I every time I talk to you, I feel like I talk to you for 5 without any problem, dude. This has been great. Again, I can't thank you enough. Yeah, every time we talk, I'm always so fascinated. I learn so much, and I think the chat agreed because everybody was saying it over and over, like how wonderful this show was and how much they learned from you.
I can't see any of that stuff because I'm on the StreamYard feed, but I really appreciate you guys coming, man, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Anytime. You know how it is. I'll have you back at some point soon. We'll let you get some more stuff going on, and then we'll check back in, and me and you keep in contact, and I'm telling you, if you're real about it, I'm coming down there at some point, man. I gotta see these things in person for myself.
Mel and I love having people to come and stay, especially somebody who understands what's going on. So
yeah, man,
we'll work on it. We'll work
All
on
right,
it.
brother. All right.
Yeah.
Well, listen,
You'll love it, man. You'll freak out, and then when you're gone, you'll be like, "I'm glad I did that, but I'm glad it's over."
yeah, you're.
That's what
I'm
everybody
sure.
says, man. I'm glad it's
I'm
over.
sure. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man. Feel better. I know you're going through some stuff, so feel better. If you need anything, give me a call, give me a text, anything. I'm here, buddy.
Thanks
Everybody,
to all your subs. Thank you.
yeah,
Thanks for listening.
absolutely. You guys, I love you all so much. We're such a great group of people who come here, man. I can't say it enough. That it's really like become like a family. Everyone knows each other. Everyone treats each other with respect and dignity and love. I'm so happy I started this channel, and that's the main reason why, is because the people who come here are just incredible. So I always have to say thank you to you guys. I love you all. I will be back on Tuesday. Nope, Monday. I'll be back on Monday. And I got a post going up, something special for Monday. I'm not going to tell you about it right now, but something special for Monday. I'll put a post up this weekend. Until the next one, guys, love and light. I will see you in a few days. Have a great night.
Peace, guys.